Hi, everybody. This is Drew Tomlin from the Association for Middle Level Education, and you are here joining us on this Google Hangout to talk about an article by Leta Simpson. And she's a teacher at Stephen F. Austin Middle School in the Bryan Independent School District in Texas. And we're so excited to have her. She's written this article called Ignite the Reading Spark in Young Adolescents. Something near and dear to my heart as a former English language arts and reading teacher my own self. So excited to read this article and to have a conversation with you, Leta. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to get right to the questions. The first one, why is it so important to get young adolescents hooked on reading? Why this age in particular?
You know, I feel like adolescents are kind of like wet concrete. They're not quite set and they're not quite dry. And this is an important age because they just started reading. And it's the theory of use it or lose it. So if we don't get them interested in reading, still keep their interest in reading and continue that love of reading, they're going to lose the skills that they already have. And so we want the message in the concrete to be one of reading is important for life. It's not just something that you do to get by. It's something that will further you intellectually throughout your entire life. And it's very important to teach our middle schoolers that.
Excellent, excellent. And you know, that analogy with the wet cement is right on. You know, everyone talks about how impressionable young adolescents are, and that's you've got to have wet cement to make an impression. So that's a very good. And so a second question, and this is kind of a personal one, and I don't mean to be intrusive, but what was your favorite book as a young adolescent and why?
Actually, it was Sweet Valley Twins and Friends. I'm not sure, the Sweet Valley Twins series. And now that my girls are starting to pick it up in my classroom, I'm like, oh, that was my first book I read, and they think I'm crazy. But I think it was because the girls in the book had a lot of adventures, and I could relate a lot to them as far as what they were going through in the series. And that's why it was my favorite set of books when I was younger.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I can say that Sweet Valley Twins wasn't necessarily on my bookshelf, but from the standpoint of, like, boy adventures and stuff like that. I mean, Hardy Boys, all those kind of series, that was on mine too. So, and Stuart Little. I don't know. Maybe that's pre-adolescent, but I still like that book to this day. So I'm sorry, I digress. You discussed 4 terrific strategies that you use in reading. If you had to pick one strategy for a teacher to start with, which one would you suggest? And how do you get started? I know that's difficult to pick one, but what would you say?
I think the easiest one to implement is the speed dating because it can be set up so easily, and then it gives your kids a basis of what they will like. It was really easy for me to implement that in my classroom because you just pick a whole bunch of books and basically they date them for 2 minutes, and that will ignite further discussion in your classroom because they like to look at the cover and be like, oh, I don't like this. I'm like, but you haven't opened it.
Right.
And then you open it and they say, oh, well, I kind of do like this. I might want to read it. And I'm like, see, you wouldn't have known that had we not done this activity. So I would suggest starting there because then it gives you a platform for you to guide their choices because you kind of see the genres they're picking. Plus for them to be like, hey, these book without just looking at the cover. So it's a little more in depth than just a grab and go is what I call it from the library, where they grab a book and they're like, this looks all right, and realize they've picked up something way above their level just because it's thin or has a colorful cover, when in actuality the content won't be what they like. So the speed dating actually gets them into a book that they may not have picked up, but now realize that they do like.
There you go. Yeah, and it's about sparking a relationship, right? Which I guess speed dating is all about. It's you're just trying to get them involved in interested in reading, and like you said, more than just a grab and go. That's terrific. Thank you for that suggestion. So how do you work with parents and families so they understand the importance of reading and understand how they can help on the home front as well? I mean, students come to us with either very, very different experiences with literacy on the home front. How do you work with families?
I think the one thing a lot of my parents have been asking this year is what's their Lexile level. And fortunately for our district, we have a program that shows parents that. And every time I showed, a parent, this is what their Lexile is, I would say 95% of them ask me, what can we do? And my suggestion was just make sure they're reading at home. If it's just y'all go to the public library and pick up books, I've got books in my classroom. It's not something that you have to buy, but just making sure that they are reading at home at least 20 minutes a day between, class and school. If they can read 20 minutes at home, that's the easiest thing a parent can do, is just make sure that their child has a minute to read whatever. That's the biggest thing, and that's going to help boost their lexile because they're practicing. I think a lot of parents think that in order to improve their reading levels that they have to do this big song and dance, and it's really not. It's really simple. It's really just reading every day and getting that practice in.
Right. And strategies like you mentioned in your article, and like the speed learning one that you mentioned, just in our conversation, it's so much more about creating a positive relationship with reading, versus like just parents and lots of folks get hung up on the numerical aspect of reading, the lexile level and all that kind of stuff. But if we just start with the number or raising the level, we're missing the whole relationship point. You know what I mean? So you got it. So I'm going to ask you, it's one of my favorite questions. I'm going to take you on a metaphorical journey. So you ready? You ready for it?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. And as you told me before this hangout, this was a collaborative effort. See, student-teacher collaboration. You collaborated with a student on this one too, so that's awesome. Getting student voice in there. So if reading was a food for middle-level education, what kind of food would it be and why?
Well, I did actually ask my kiddos when I was preparing for this interview, and I was sitting next to one of my kids, and I was just stumped. Oh, what is it? And so he came up with one, and then I came up with one.
Cool.
He said it was like a cake. And I asked him why, and he said, well, it's got to be like a layered cake because, the story's got a beginning, middle, and end. And if you think about it, he's kind of right, because you've got the layers of cake plus the icing plus any other flavors that you have in there. And just by looking at a cake, you won't know its depth until you taste it, and then it's layers of flavors. Plus, there's all kinds of cakes. So
Yeah.
that was a metaphor, and I thought that was a pretty good one. And mine, the question was asked at the middle school level, what food would it be? And honestly, I think it's kind of like Golden Corral, because there's a whole bunch of books you can pick from, especially at this age. Nobody is some of them might be, but nobody's like stuck on a genre where that's all they'll read for the rest of their lives. So it's like Golden Corral, where it's like, let's try the steaks one day. Let's try the vegetable area one day. What am I into? So reading at the middle school was kind of figuring out what you like, kind of figuring out what food is the best fit for you as a reader.
Yeah. And the goal being that you want them to keep on coming back to the corral.
Absolutely. And you can always pick from any food at any point at Golden Corral. You're not just stuck in one area. You can bebop back and forth.
That is true. And bebopping in bed. That's cool. And gosh, please share our praise for your student with the cake metaphor. I mean, gosh, that was spot on. So good stuff. For him. And of course, pat on the back to you as well. Thank you, Leta, for answering that question so famously. And thank you for such a wonderful article and a good conversation. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Awesome. And of course, thank you, AMLE Magazine readers, for checking out this Google Hangout with this wonderful author and teacher. And thank you for checking out AMLE Magazine. We'll help you reach every student, grow professionally, and create great schools. All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.